The hum of the refrigerator was the loudest sound in the house. It was a sound Renata Richter had come to know intimately over the past 3 years, the sound of silence, of waiting. She sat at her kitchen table, a relic from a happier time, its oak surface worn smooth by decades of family meals, homework sessions, and late-night cups of tea with her husband, Robert. Now, it mostly held stacks of unread mail and the faint, ghostly rings from 1,000 coffee cups, drank alone. Her finger hovered over the video call button on her phone. The contact photo smiled back at her. Her son, Max, his arm wrapped around his wife, Lena. They looked golden, vibrant, a stark contrast to the muted tones of her own life. Taking a deep breath, she pressed it. The ringing tone seemed to echo in the quiet house. Once, twice, her heart performed its familiar, pathetic little flutter. Then, the screen resolved, not into Max's boyish grin, but into Lena's perfectly composed face. She was in their living room, the one Renata had furnished, sitting on the sofa Renata had bought. Lena's voice was bright, a little too sharp, like a polished blade. What a surprise! "Hello, Lena," Renata said, her own voice softer, more tentative. "I was hoping to catch Max. Is he there?" "He's just preoccupied," Lena said, her eyes flicking to something off-screen. "Did you need something?" "Everything okay with the transfer?" There was always a slight pause before words like transfer or rent, a tiny verbal flinch that Renata had trained herself to ignore. No, everything's fine. I was just calling about the wedding." The words tumbled out in a rush. "I realized we've never settled on a date. I was looking at my calendar, and I want to make sure I block out the time, to help with the preparations. Anything you need." Lena smile didn't widen, but it changed. It became something colder, more deliberate. She leaned slightly closer to the camera, and Renata could see the flawless application of her lipstick, the sharp, intelligent gleam in her eyes that always made Renata feel slightly slow, slightly outdated. "Oh, the wedding," Lena said, as if discussing a minor social event. "Well, that's all taken care of." A cold trickle of unease traced its way down Renata's spine. "Taken care of? What do you mean?" "We already got married." "Renata?" The words were delivered with a casual, almost surgical precision. "Yesterday, in fact. It was beautiful, just a small, intimate thing. The world did not slow down. It did the opposite. It accelerated into a dizzying, nauseating blur. The hum of the refrigerator became a roar in her ears. Renata's grip on the phone tightened until her knuckles ached. She was aware of her own breathing, shallow and rapid. "Yesterday," she whispered. "But I didn't know." Behind Lena, a figure moved into the frame. Max. He wouldn't look at the screen. His shoulders were hunched, his hands shoved deep into his pockets. He looked like a scolded child, not a man who had just gotten married. Lena's smile was now a chilling, triumphant thing. "We wanted it to be perfect. Just us and the witnesses, of course. We only invited special people." The two words hit Renata with the force of a physical blow. They were a bucket of ice water thrown directly into her soul. She felt the air leave her lungs in a silent whoosh. Special people. She, who had paid their $500 monthly rent for 3 years, $18,000 that had seeped from her retirement account like lifeblood. She, who had bought every stick of furniture in that apartment from the bed they slept in to the plates they ate from. She, who had made secret trips to the grocery store to fill their empty refrigerator, hiding the receipts so as not to embarrass them. She was not a special person. She stood there, rooted to the spot in her own living room, a room that suddenly felt alien and empty. The phone in her hand felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. On the screen, her son continued to study the floor, as if the answers to the universe were written in the grain of the wood, while his wife, her daughter-in-law, made herself comfortable on the sofa she had provided. "Max!" Renata managed, her voice a broken thing. He finally lifted his gaze, but his eyes skated over hers, never landing. "Mom, it was an intimate thing. Very small. Just the two of us and the witnesses." His voice sounded rehearsed, hollow, but she knew. Oh, she knew it was a lie. She could see it in the guilty slope of his shoulders, in the defiant set of Lena's jaw. "I see," Renata said, though she saw nothing but a black, swirling void. "Well, congratulations." She ended the call without another word. The screen went black, reflecting her own pale, stunned face. For a long time, she simply stood there, the silence of the house pressing in on her. Her feet carried her on autopilot to her bedroom. There, hanging in the back of her closet, shrouded in a clear garment bag, was the pale pink dress. She had spent $200 on it, a frivolous, extravagant sum for her. She had stood in the department store dressing room, turning before the mirror, imagining how she would look in her son's wedding photos. She had pictured herself standing next to him, her hand on his arm, beaming with a mother's pride. Photos in which she would now never, ever appear. The dress hung there, useless and mocking, next to the new, uncomfortable shoes. It hung alongside the illusion, the beautiful, fragile illusion of being part of the most important day of her only son's life. The dam inside her finally broke, not with a sob, but with a quiet, shuddering collapse. She sank onto the edge of her bed, the same bed she had shared with Robert for 40 years, the bed where she had comforted a young Max through nightmares. For weeks, she had planned, she had scrimped and saved an extra $1,000 to give them as a wedding gift. She had called her sister, Diana, in Chicago, her voice bubbling with excitement as she shared the good news. She had cleaned her house from top to bottom, polishing every surface, fluffing every cushion, imagining they might come back here after the ceremony, that her home would be filled with laughter and celebration. All of it, the hope, the anticipation, the love had collapsed in a single second, obliterated by 4 poisoned words. Only special people. Later that night, driven by a masochistic impulse she couldn't control, she opened her social media, and there it was. The evidence. A cascade of photos from Lena's profile, set to public, as if to ensure she would see them. There was Lena, radiant in a simple but elegant white dress. The one, Renata realized, with a fresh wave of nausea, that I helped finance with the $800 I gave her last month for personal expenses. There was Max, in a new suit, smiling a real, unforced smile, and there, standing proudly beside them, were Lena's parents, their faces glowing with joy. There were her siblings, raising glasses of champagne in a toast. There were friends, a dozen of them at least, laughing and dancing. It was not just the two of us and the witnesses. It was a wedding. A real wedding. A celebration from which she, the mother of the groom, had been deliberately, pointedly excluded. She closed the laptop. The darkness of the room felt absolute. The betrayal was no longer just an emotional wound. It was a concrete, documented fact. She had been edited out of her son's life, as neatly as a photographer crops an unwanted person from a picture. For 3 years, she had lived with a constant, low-grade anxiety, a feeling of walking on eggshells. She weighed every word, measured every gift, performed a delicate dance of generosity and need, all in the desperate hope of earning a crumb of affection, a scrap of attention. She had been the perfect mother, the obliging mother, the silent provider who never protested when they treated her as an afterthought, an inconvenience, a human ATM. But that phrase, only special people, had awakened something in her, something that had been dormant for far too long. It was a cold, hard kernel of clarity. She went to the small desk in the corner of her room, the one where Robert used to pay the bills. She took out a notepad and a pen, and she began to do the math. It wasn't just about the rent. It was about everything. She opened her bank statements, her credit card bills, the little notebook where she jotted down cash gifts, and she added it all up, forcing herself to look the monstrous total in the eye. Monthly rent, 500 kali, 36 months, equals $18,000. Groceries and household supplies, $200 man, equals $7,200. Birthday gifts, Christmas gifts, anniversaries. At least $3,000 medical emergency for Lina last year. $800. Car loan they never repaid. $2,500 air conditioner repair for their apartment. $600. Living room, furniture set. $1,200. She stared at the final number, written at the bottom of the page in her neat, looping handwriting. $33,400. $33,400. Not a gift given freely from a place of abundance, but money clawed from her pension, from the savings her late husband had left so she could live her final years in peace, from the careful, frugal life she had built penny by penny over decades of honest work. All of it thrown into the bottomless pit of their entitlement. All of it to keep 2 able-bodied adults, comfortable adults, who could uneven extend to her the basic courtesy of a wedding invitation. That night, she cried, but they weren't the soft, grieving tears of a mother losing her son. They were hot, angry tears of accumulated frustration, of years of silently endured humiliation. She cried for all the times they had made her feel that her love was a burden, her presence a hindrance, her money the only thing she had to offer. She cried for the foolish woman she had been, the woman who had lost herself completely in the desperate attempt to make herself indispensable to people who considered her utterly dispensable. When the tears finally subsided, a strange emptiness remained. But it wasn't the empty silence of loneliness. It was the quiet after a storm. It was the space where something new could begin to grow. She fell into a fitful sleep, and when she woke the next morning, the first rays of sun slicing through her window, something fundamental had shifted inside her. It wasn't just the pain of the betrayal. It was something deeper, colder, more determined. She stood up and looked at herself in the bathroom mirror. The same tired eyes, the same wrinkles that told the story of 71 years of giving more than she received. But there was something else in her gaze now. A hardness she didn't recognize, a glint of steel that had been buried under a lifetime of compliance. She went to the kitchen and made coffee, as she had every morning for 40 years. But this time she didn't think about calling Max to see how he had slept. She didn't check her phone in anticipation of a message from him, an apology, an explanation. For the first time in a very, very long time, Renata Richter was her own first concern. She sat at the kitchen table, the very place where she had so often planned surprises for them, counted out bills for their expenses, and cried silent tears when they treated her with indifference. Now, this table would be a witness to something completely different. The phone rang, shattering the morning quiet. She looked at the screen. It was Max. Normally, her heart would have leaped, a conditioned response of hope and yearning. She would have scrambled to answer, already constructing excuses for his behavior, ready to forgive anything for a moment of his attention. This time, she watched it ring. Once, twice, 3 times. The call went to voicemail. She didn't listen to the message. She simply took a slow, deliberate sip of her coffee. It was surprisingly easy. 10 minutes later, it rung again. Lena this time, she let that one ring out, too. Then, a text message lit up the screen. Max, Mom, please answer. We need to talk. Her thumb hovered over the delete button. Then, with a finality that sent a shiver down her own spine, she pressed it. The message vanished. She stood up, cleared her coffee cup, and got dressed. At 2 p.m., she decided to go for a walk. Not to the bank to make a transfer, not to the supermarket to buy them something they needed, not to the pharmacy for Lena's medications. She went for a walk just because she wanted to. She walked past the park where she had so often taken Max as a child. She could almost see the ghost of a little boy with scraped knees, running towards her with arms outstretched, shouting, "You're the best mommy in the whole world." When had that boy become the man who could look through a screen and watch his mother's heart break without saying a word? When had she started confusing love with financial servitude? When had she begun to believe she had to buy her own son's affection? The questions swirled, but they no longer had the power to paralyze her. They were simply data points, evidence in the case she was building against her old life. Her feet, as if guided by some deep-seated instinct, carried her towards the bank. She stopped in front of the familiar glass doors. Through them, she saw the branch manager, Mr. Klein, at his desk. He had been there for years. He had processed every one of those $500 transfers. He had watched her account slowly, steadily diminish to bolster her son's. He looked up, saw her, and waved with a kind, familiar smile. Renata took a deep breath, the kind that fills your lungs with new purpose. She pushed the door open and walked inside. The air was cool, smelling of paper and disinfectant. She walked past the tellers, directly to Mr. Klein's open office door. "Mrs. Richter?" he said, standing. "Lovely to see you. What can I do for you today?" Another transfer. She met his gaze, her own steady and clear. "No, Mr. Klein," she said, her voice firm and resonant in the quiet office. "Actually, I need you to cancel all the automatic transfers I have programmed, every single one." His smile faltered. He blinked, looking genuinely surprised. "Cancel them. Are you sure, Mrs. Richter? Did something happen?" She allowed herself a small, grim smile. "What happened, Mr. Klein?" Renata Richter replied, "is that I have finally opened my eyes." The silence in Mr. Klein's office was profound, broken only by the soft click-clack of his keyboard as he processed the cancellations. Renata watched the screen over his shoulder, each keystroke feeling like a lock sliding shut on a door she had kept open for far too long. Mr. Klein asked again, his finger hovering over the final enter key. "This has been a standing order for 36 months. It's as regular as clockwork. More regular than my son's phone calls," Renata said, the words out of her mouth before she could stop them. They hung in the air, stark and true. Mr. Klein's kind, wrinkled face, soft with understanding. He didn't press further. "Very well." He pressed the key, a final, Definitive beep echoed in the small space. It's done. All recurring transfers to the account of Maximilian Richter are cancelled, effective immediately. A tremor, faint but unmistakable, went through her. It wasn't fear, not quite. It was the vibrational shift of the earth moving beneath her feet after decades of stillness. "There's one more thing," she said, her voice gaining strength from the finality of that single keystroke. "I want to revoke any and all permissions for third-party access to my accounts. I don't want anyone but me able to make inquiries or transactions." This was a new thought, one that had crystallized as she walked to the bank. There had been times, she recalled, when Max had called her, flustered, needing to check her account balance for some vague reason related to a joint application or a credit check. She had always given him the information freely, trusting him. Now, the memory felt naive, dangerous. Mr. Klein nodded, his professionalism a solid anchor in her sea of churning emotions. "A prudent decision. We can set up additional security questions and a verbal password for any phone inquiries." He began the process, and Renata felt a layer of armor clicking into place around her life's savings. As he worked, her phone, which she had placed on the edge of his desk, began to vibrate. Not a ring, but a persistent, angry buzz against the polished wood. "Max?" The screen flashed. Mr. Klein glanced at it, then at her. Renata looked at the name, at the picture of her smiling son. She saw not the boy she remembered, but the man who had stood silently by while his wife delivered the cruelest cut of all. She watched the phone until it stilled, the screen going dark. She did not reach for it. A moment later, it buzzed again. "Lena, would you like me to give you a moment?" Mr. Klein asked gently. "No," Renata said, her gaze fixed on the now silent phone. "There is nothing they need to say to me that I need to hear." By the time she left the bank, the phone had buzzed 3 more times. A text message arrived as she stepped out into the afternoon sun. "Max, Mom, this isn't funny. The landlord is asking about the rent. Call me back." She deleted it. The action was becoming easier, a muscle she was learning to flex. She turned the phone to silent and dropped it into her purse. The weight of it felt different, now not a tether to her son, but a tool she controlled. She decided to walk home by a longer route, past the little boutiques and cafes she usually hurried by, her mind preoccupied with Max and Lena's latest crisis. Today, she allowed herself to window shop. She paused before a small art supply store. Its window a riot of color. A blank canvas and a set of acrylic paints were displayed on a small easel. A memory, long buried, surfaced, herself at 20, splattered with paint, dreaming of being an artist before life and responsibility and motherhood had narrowed her path. She pushed the thought away, but it left a residue, a faint whisper of possibility. When she finally turned onto her street, the sense of lightness she had felt at the bank evaporated. Parked directly in front of her house were 3 cars. Max's beat-up sedan, Lena's sleek little hybrid, and a third, an expensive-looking black sedan she didn't recognize. Her blood ran cold. They were inside. She had given them keys years ago, a gesture of trust, a symbolic welcome into the inner sanctum of her life. She had imagined a future where they would use those keys to check on her, to bring her soup when she was ill, to share a cup of coffee on a quiet morning. She had never imagined they would use them to invade. Through the front window, she could see movement, shadows shifting in her living room. Her living room, the fear was immediate, a primal reaction, but rising to meet it was something new, a cold, sharp fury. This was her home, the one place in the world that was supposed to be hers, alone. She took a deep, steadying breath, her hand closing around the new keys in her pocket, the ones she had made after the wedding snub. A first, instinctive step towards self-preservation she hadn't fully understood until this moment. It was time for the first real confrontation of her new life. She opened the door. The scene that greeted her was one she would never forget. Max was slumped on her sofa, his head in his hands. Lena was pacing back and forth like a caged tiger, her heels clicking a frantic tattoo on the hardwood floor. And an older man, impeccably dressed in a gray suit, was standing at her dining table, calmly sifting through a stack of her papers, her bank statements, her medical records, the file concerning Robert's will. The violation was so absolute, so breathtaking, that for a moment Renata could only stand there, frozen in the doorway. "What?" she said, her voice low and shaking with a rage she had never known herself capable of. "Is happening in my house." All three of them spun around as if she were the intruder. Lena was the first to recover, her face instantly morphing from agitated to a mask of desperate concern. "Renata, thank God you're here." She rushed forward, but stopped short when Renata took a step back, her body language a clear, unyielding wall. "We've been so worried. We need to talk. This is Mr. Fisher. He's from the law firm we consulted about your situation." "My situation." Renata's gaze swept from Lena to the man at her table. "What situation would that be?" "I'm perfectly fine." Max finally lifted his head. His eyes were red-rimmed, but with anger, not tears. "Mom, we went to the bank. Mr. Klein told us you canceled everything. You blocked our access. What the hell are you doing?" Mr. Fisher approached, his hand outstretched, his smile a bland, professional thing that didn't reach his eyes. "Mrs. Richter, I am Dr. Fisher, a family law attorney. Your children are concerned about your mental well-being and have asked me to assess the situation." Renata ignored his outstretched hand. Instead, she walked past him directly to her dining table and began gathering her papers from his grasp. "These are my private documents. You have no right to be looking at them without my express permission." "Mom, don't be difficult," Max interjected, his voice taking on that condescending tone he'd perfected in recent years, the one that always made her feel small and foolish. "We're worried about you. Your behavior has been erratic. First, you cut us off financially for no reason. Then you don't answer our calls. We think you might need professional help." Lena approached again, this time attempting the soft, nurturing voice she used when a particularly large gift was required. "Renata, honey, we know you've been under a lot of stress. Maybe the loneliness, it's affecting you more than you want to admit. At your age, episodes of confusion are completely normal." The word confusion echoed in the high-ceilinged room, an alarm bell clanging in Renata's mind. Now she understood the lawyer. This wasn't a friendly intervention. This was a scouting mission. They were laying the groundwork to have her declared mentally incompetent, to seize control legally. The woman who had told her she was unspecial enough for a wedding invitation was now trying to paint her as a senile old woman who could unmanage her own life. "I am not confused," Renata said, her voice dropping to a deadly calm. She placed the last of her papers neatly in a pile and squared her shoulders, looking each of them in the eye. "I am clearer than I have been in years, and you are all going to leave my house right now." Mr. Fisher cleared his throat, adopting the reasonable, patient tone of an expert dealing with a recalcitrant child. "Mrs. Richter, I understand you feel overwhelmed, but your children have a right to intervene if they believe your capacity for sound financial judgment is impaired. They have documented several concerning behaviors concerning behaviors. The laugh that escaped Renata's throat was harsh, almost cruel. Like what? Deciding that my money belongs to me. Deciding to stop financing the lives of two grown adults who treat me with less respect than they would a stray dog. Lena flinched, as if struck. We have never treated you badly. You are part of our family. Everything you have will belong to us. One day anyway. Streamlining the process. There it was, the naked, unvarnished truth, finally spoken aloud. Everything you have will belong to us one day anyway. In their minds, she was already dead. She was merely an obstacle standing between them and their inheritance, and they were tired of waiting. Out, Renata said, her arm rigid as she pointed at the front door. All three of you. Get out of my house. Max stood up, his face contorted with the petulant anger of a man who has always gotten his way. Mom, we can't just leave. We have obligations. The rent, the car payment, the credit card bill you co-signed for. You can't just cut us off overnight. I can't. Her voice rose, sharp and clear, for the first time in the entire conversation. It was a sound that commanded attention. Who says I can't? For years, I have paid a rent that wasn't in my name. I have filled a refrigerator in a home where I am clearly not welcome. I have financed a life that has no place for me in its most important moments. That ends. Now. Mr. Fisher retrieved a sleek leather folder from his briefcase and placed it on her table with a soft, final thud. Mrs. Richter, we have prepared some documents that could facilitate a smoother transition, a power of attorney that would allow Max and Lena to manage your finances more efficiently. It would only be temporary until you're feeling more like yourself. Renata looked at the folder, then at the lawyer, then at her son. Without a word, she picked it up, walked to the kitchen trash can, and dropped it inside. The thud of it hitting the plastic liner was immensely satisfying. The only transition happening here, she said, her voice icy, is yours from my front hallway to the street. Lena began to cry, but these were not the delicate tears of before. They were tears of pure, unadulterated frustration. You can't do this to us, Renata. We were counting on you. We made plans. We bought things based on your support. Plans based on my money. Renata shot back. Not on my well-being. Not on my happiness. Not on my company. Just on my money. And now that I've decided my money is better spent on my own life, I am suddenly a confused old woman who needs a legal guardian. Max took a step towards her, his hand outstretched in a placating gesture she knew was false. She took a decisive step back, putting the dining table between them. He was no longer the little boy who needed her. He was a predator, and she was his mark. Mom, we made mistakes, he said, the remorse in his voice sounding rehearsed. The wedding, it was a misunderstanding. Lena was nervous. I was under pressure. We can fix this. Just be reasonable. Reasonable. The word was a bitter pill on her tongue. Being reasonable means continuing to pay for your life while you treat me like a stranger. It means pretending it doesn't hurt to have been excluded from my only son's wedding. I am done being reasonable. Mr. Fisher was packing his briefcase with the brisk efficiency of a man whose services are no longer required. Mrs. Richter, this is not over. Your family has legal options. If you are indeed making irrational decisions due to cognitive decline, a judge can determine that you require guardianship. His words were a physical blow, driving the air from her lungs. This was not an idle threat. It was a declaration of war. Mr. Fisher, Renata said, looking him directly in his cold, professional eyes. I suggest you do your due diligence before you threaten a 71-year-old widow who has managed her finances flawlessly for 40 years. The woman who raised a son alone after her husband died. The woman who ran a household and worked full-time until retirement. The woman who, until last week, was financially supporting two perfectly capable adults. Lena stopped her fake crying and looked at Renata with a coldness that finally revealed her true face. This isn't over, Renata. We have rights, and we have lawyers too. Perfect, Renata replied, a strange sense of calm settling over her. Hire all the lawyers you want, with your own money. Of course, because mine is no longer available to finance your legal tantrums. They filed out a parade of wounded pride and simmering rage. As Max crossed the threshold, he turned, his face a mask of bitter resentment. You're going to regret this, Mom. You're going to end up alone, with no one to take care of you when you really need it. The words were meant to wound, to tap into her deepest fear. But instead of fear, she felt a profound, bone-deep sadness. Max, she said, her voice quiet but unwavering, I am already alone. The only difference is, now it's by my own choice, not by your neglect. She closed the door. The click of the lock engaging was the most beautiful sound she had heard in years. She leaned against the solid wood, her body trembling with adrenaline and relief. She was standing in her living room, surrounded by the ghosts of her old life, but the silence that greeted her was no longer one of loneliness. It was the silence of freedom, and it was hers. The silence after the door closed was a living thing. It wasn't the empty silence of abandonment, but a thick, potent quiet, vibrating with the echoes of the confrontation and the promise of a new beginning. Renata stood with her back against the door for a long time, listening to the frantic beat of her own heart slowly settle into a steady, determined rhythm. She walked through her house, room by room, seeing it with new eyes. The sofa where Max had sat, the dining table where the lawyer had laid his predatory documents, the hallway where Lena's desperate tears had fallen. They had left a stain on the space, an invisible residue of their entitlement and betrayal. She opened a window, letting the cool evening air rush in, scouring the room clean. Sleep did not come easily that night. She lay awake, not with the anxious, circular thoughts that usually plagued her, but with the sharp, clear focus of a general planning a campaign. If they wanted a war, she would give them one. But it would be a war fought with intelligence, documentation, and cold, hard facts, not with the messy, vulnerable emotion they had always used to manipulate her. At 6 a.m., she was already dressed, her movements crisp and purposeful. Her first stop was not the coffee pot, but the desk where she kept her most important files. She gathered them bank statements from the last 3 years, records of wire transfers, receipts for furniture and appliances, the little notebook of gifts. This was her evidence. This was the story of her financial bleeding. Her destination. The office of Friedrich Weber. She had met Hera Weber a decade ago when Robert's will was being probated. He was a man in his late 60s, with a stern, Teutonic demeanor and eyes that missed nothing. Unlike the slick Mr. Fisher, Herr Weber had a reputation for uncompromising integrity and a specialty in protecting the assassined rights of the elderly. His office was a reflection of the man, orderly, quiet, and filled with shelves of heavy legal tomes. He rose as she was shown in, his handshake firm and dry. Frau Richter, he said, his voice a low rumble. It has been too long. Please, sit. She did not mince words. She laid out the entire sordid tale. The years of financial support. The secret wedding. The words only special people. The visit from Max, Lena, and their lawyer. The threat of a competency hearing. As she spoke, she placed the documentary evidence on his desk, the spreadsheets of payments, the social media photos of the wedding, her notes from the confrontation. Herr Weber listened without interruption, his steepled fingers pressed to his lips. When she finished, he leaned forward, his gaze intense. "What your son and daughter-in-law attempted yesterday," he said, his tone grave, "is a form of abuse, financial and emotional exploitation of an elder. It is, in fact, a crime. The fact that they entered your home without permission and examined your private documents strengthens our position significantly." The word crime landed with a shocking weight. It framed their actions not as a family dispute, but as a violation. It was both terrifying and validating. "What do we do?" Renata asked, her voice steady. "We build a fortress," Herr Weber replied. "First, we document everything, every transfer, every gift, every instance of pressure. We will also begin the process of changing your will." "Immediately." "Changing my will." "Indeed. We will remove them as beneficiaries and designate a neutral executor. This serves two purposes. It protects your estate, and it sends a clear message that their strategy has backfired catastrophically. We remove their incentive." The finality of it took her breath away, disinheriting her only son. It felt like a physical amputation, but as the pain flashed through her, it was followed by a surge of grim resolve. He had already amputated her from his life. She was merely making it official on paper. "We will also draft a series of letters," Herr Weber continued. "Formal Sasandi's Ist communications, informing them that all future contact must go through this office. We begin establishing a paper trail of their harassment." For 2 hours, they worked. Herr Weber was a maestro, orchestrating her defense with precision. He photocopied every document, made notes, and dictated letters with a cool, unyielding clarity. When she left his office, she carried with her a heavy folder of copies and a heart that felt strangely, powerfully light. She was no longer a victim. She was a client. She had a general, and she had an army of one, but it was an army of the law. Her next stop was the hardware store, a place she knew well from countless trips to buy supplies for Max and Lena's apartment. The owner, Herr Sommer, a jovial man with kind eyes and sawdust perpetually clinging to his apron, looked up from behind the counter. "Frau Richard, Guten Tag. What can I help you with today?" Another leaky faucet for the young folks. The familiarity, once a comfort, now felt like a reminder of her past servitude. "No, Herr Sommer," she said, her voice firm. "This time, it is for me. I need to change all the locks on my house, the best quality you have." His bushy eyebrows rose in surprise, but he asked no prying questions. Of course, I have just the thing." German engineering, very tough to pick. As he rummaged under the counter, the bell on the door jingled. "Ah, perfect timing. This is my son Ethan. He handles our security system installations." A young man in his late 20s, with his father's kind eyes and a more practical, focused demeanor, nodded a greeting. Frau Richter. Providence, it seemed, was on her side. "Ethan," she said, turning to him, "I need a complete security system. Cameras for the front and back doors, motion sensors, an alarm. The whole system. Price is not an issue." Ethan nodded, pulling out a tablet. I can do a survey this afternoon. We can have it installed by tomorrow. While they discussed specifications, her phone, set to vibrate, buzzed incessantly in her purse. She ignored it until a call came through from a number she didn't recognize. A cold intuition told her who it was. She answered, "Yes, Renata, it's Lena." The voice was strained, using a borrowed phone now that her number was blocked. "Please don't hang up. We need to talk like civilized adults." "Speak," Renata said, her voice flat. "Listen," Lena began, the manipulative warmth seeping back into her tone. "I understand you're upset about the wedding. It was a mistake. Max and I have talked, and we want to make it up to you. How about a special dinner? Just us. To celebrate, we can cook together at your house, like we used to." The audacity was breathtaking. The woman who had declared her not special now wanted to use her kitchen for a faux celebration. Lena, Renata, interrupted, her tone cutting. "How much rent do you owe, exactly?" The silence on the other end was profound. She had ripped away the facade in one move. Well, it's 2 months. 1,000 total. But Renata, I'm not just calling for that. We miss you in our lives." "Do you miss me?" Renata asked, each word a precise, sharp stab. "Or do you miss my money?" The pause was just a beat too long. "Both," Lena finally admitted, the honesty shocking in its cynicism. "Renata, I won't lie to you. Yes, we need your help. But we love you too. You're important to us." "If I'm so important," Renata said, the ice in her voice so cold it burned, "why wasn't I important enough to be at your wedding? Why am I not important enough to warrant a phone call that doesn't end with a request for money? When was the last time you called me just to ask how I was doing?" The silence this time was the answer. "Never." "Lena, I will only say this once. For 3 years, you have treated me as an ATM with feelings. You used me, you ignored me, you humiliated me. And now that the money has stopped, you suddenly discover this great affection. It's too late." "Renata, please." "There is no please. You made your choice when you decided I wasn't special. Now I am making mine." She ended the call and, for the first time, powered the phone off completely. The little screen went black. The sense of liberation was absolute. She was untethered. She was free. That afternoon, she did something she hadn't done in over a year. She went to the beauty salon. Cynthia, her usual stylist, greeted her with wide eyes. "Frau Richter? I thought you'd forgotten about me." "I didn't forget you, Cynthia," Renata said, settling into the chair. "I just forgot that I deserve to be pampered, too." She indulged in the full treatment. A cut and style, a rich color to cover the gray, a manicure, a pedicure. As Cynthia worked, they talked not about Max or Lena, but about Cynthia's children. Her plans to visit her sister in Hamburg, the new bakery that had opened on the corner. It was a normal, human conversation, devoid of manipulation or hidden agendas. It was nourishment for a starved soul. "You look beautiful, Frau Richter," Cynthia said, holding up the mirror. "But more than that, you look free." Did something good happen? Renata met her own reflection in the glass. The woman who looked back had the same features, the same wrinkles. But her eyes held a new light, her posture a new strength. "Yes, Cynthia," she said, a genuine smile touching her lips for the first time in weeks. "I finally learned to say no. When she returned home, feeling like a new woman, there was a car she didn't recognize parked out front. Her heart stuttered, the old fear flaring had they come back. But as she approached, she saw an older woman sitting on the steps of her porch, a small casserole dish beside her. The woman stood as Renata approached. "Frau Richter." "Yes, I'm Eleanor Brooks. I live next door." She gestured to the house to the left. "We've been neighbors for 5 years, but our paths never seem to cross. I heard some raised voices yesterday. I just wanted to make sure everything was all right." Her concern was genuine, her eyes warm and intelligent. Here was a stranger showing more care for her well-being than her own flesh and blood. Renata looked at this woman, at her kind face, and made a decision. She was done with secrets, done with pretending everything was fine. "Frau Brooks," she said, her voice soft. "Come in. I'll make some coffee, and I will tell you a story you will not believe." Over coffee in her clean, quiet kitchen, she told Eleanor everything. Eleanor listened, her expression shifting from polite concern to deep empathy to quiet outrage. When Renata finished, Eleanor reached across the table and placed her hand over hers. Her grip was firm, reassuring. "Renata, may I call you Renata? You have done the right thing. The only thing." Her eyes grew distant, clouded with memory. "I went through something similar with my daughter, Claudia. Not to this extreme, but the same pattern. I thought money was the currency of love. I thought if I stopped paying, the love would stop too." "What happened?" Renata asked, hungry for this knowledge, for this proof that she was not alone. "I cut her off. It was the hardest thing I have ever done. The threats, the guilt, the emotional blackmail. It was terrible. But after 6 months, she called. A real call. She apologized. She had gotten a second job. Her husband had stepped up. We have a relationship now. A real one, based on mutual respect." The story was a balm, a beacon of hope in the dark. Do you think Max and Lena could ever understand? Maybe not, Eleanor said with a gentle honesty. But that is no longer your responsibility, my dear. Your responsibility now is to live your own life. Truly live it. That night, for the first time in 3 years, Renata went to bed without a single thought for Max and Lena's rent, their groceries, their whims. She went to bed thinking about the new lock being installed tomorrow, the security cameras, the firm, reassuring presence of Hera Weber, and the unexpected friendship offered by her neighbor. She slept a deep, dreamless sleep. And when she woke, the fortress around her life was not just made of steel and law, but of something even stronger. The unshakable conviction that she was worth defending. The summons arrived 1 week later, a crisp, official document that felt cold and heavy in Renata's hands. In the matter of the guardianship of Renata, it was real. It was real. The war her son had declared was now being waged in a court of law. The days leading up to the trial, what a strange limbo. Herr Weber prepared her meticulously, his demeanor that of a seasoned surgeon before a complex operation. He walked her through every piece of evidence, every possible line of questioning, every tactic the opposition might use. "They will try to paint you as erratic Ryanade," he said, his voice calm and steady. "They will use your decision to protect yourself as proof of paranoia. They will use your righteous anger as proof of instability. Your job is to remain calm, clear, and factual. You are not on trial for being a bad mother. You are on trial for being a competent adult who said no." Meanwhile, Eleanor became her rock. She brought over meals, sat with her in the evenings, and shared stories of her own journey, normalizing the roller coaster of fear, guilt, and fierce determination that churned within Renata. Her other new friends from the garden, Clu Maria, Carmen, and the wise Octagena and Alfreda, called regularly, offering their support and their own testimonies of survival. She was no longer an army of one. She was the central figure in a phalanx of strong women. The morning of the trial, Renata dressed with care. She chose a simple, well-tailored black suit, a string of pearls that had been her mother's, and low, sensible heels. She looked in the mirror and did not see a vulnerable old woman. She saw a matriarch. She saw a survivor. Herr Weber met her at the courthouse steps. "Remember," he said, his hand briefly on her arm. "Clarity, fact, dignity." The courtroom was smaller than she had imagined, all polished wood and solemn quiet, and there, at the opposing table, were Max and Lena. Max looked pale and uncomfortable in a new, ill-fitting suit. Lena was dressed in somber navy, her face a perfect mask of concerned devotion. Their lawyer, the elegant Dr. Fisson, looked polished and predatory. Judge Miller entered, a man in his 60s, with a stern, intelligent face and eyes that missed nothing. The proceedings began. Dr. Fisson's opening statement was a masterpiece of manipulation. "Your Honor," he began in a sonorous voice, "this is a tragic but necessary case. We are here today because a loving family has been forced to watch the mental decline of their beloved matriarch, Frau Renata Rieck. A woman once generous and kind has become secretive, paranoid, and financially irresponsible, cutting off her only son without cause and falling under the influence of strangers who do not have her best interests at heart." He painted a picture of a confused widow, isolated and manipulated. Her sudden financial independence, not an act of self-preservation, but a symptom of cognitive decay. Then, it was Herr Weber's turn. He stood, his presence commanding a different kind of attention. "Your Honor, what we have here is not a case of mental decline, but a case of financial and emotional abuse. My client is not confused. She is crystal clear. For years, she was treated not as a mother, but as a monetary resource. The moment she stopped the flow of money, the people who claimed to love her launched a systematic campaign to have her declared incompetent and seize control of her assets. This lawsuit is not an act of concern. It is an act of predation." The battle was joined. Dr. Fisson called his witnesses. Lena took the stand first, and her performance was chilling. She spoke of Renata's baffling change in behavior, her unfounded suspicions, her isolation from the family. She cried delicate, perfect tears. "Renata was like a second mother to me," she sniffled, dabbing her eyes with a tissue. "To see her like this, it breaks my heart. We just want her to get the help she needs." When Herr Weber rose for cross-examination, his approach was deceptively gentle. "Frau Schuster, you speak of your close relationship. Can you tell the court the last time you called my client for a conversation that did not, in some way, involve a request for money?" Lena's composure flickered. We talked about many things. Our lives, our plans, a specific date. Please, the last time you called just to ask how she was feeling. I don't recall exact dates. Is it true that you and your husband were married in a ceremony to which my client was not invited? It was a very small, intimate gathering, Lena said, her voice tightening. Is it also true that when my client asked about this wedding, you informed her that you had only invited special people? The gasp in the courtroom was audible. Lena's face flushed a deep red. that was taken out of context. And what, pray tell, is the correct context for informing a mother she is not a special person in her only son's life? Herr Weber's voice was like ice. Lena had no answer. Max was next. He looked diminished on the stand, unable to meet his mother's gaze. He echoed Lena's sentiments, speaking in vague terms about his mother's irrational decision-making. Herr Weber's cross-examination was merciless. Herr Richter, can you account for the approximately $3,400 your mother gave to you and your wife over the past 3 years? Max shifted uncomfortably. She was always generous. We never asked. The court has the bank statements. Let's be precise. How many times in the last year have you visited your mother without asking for financial assistance of any kind? The silence was damning. Is it true you and your wife entered her home without permission and went through her private financial and medical documents? We were worried. Max insisted, his voice rising. Is it true you brought a lawyer to pressure her into signing a power of attorney? We wanted to help her manage things. Do you, a 35-year-old man, require your 71-year-old mother's help to pay your rent? Max looked down, defeated. The picture was clear. A capable adult son, fully dependent on his elderly mother. The other witnesses were less effective. The neighbor, Herr Davis, came across as a bitter busybody. The pharmacist, Herr Giarin, humbly recanted his earlier statement, explaining how Lena had tricked him into signing a misleading document. Then, Dr. Fisan played his trump card. He called a psychiatrist, a Dr. Lerman, who testified that Renata's refusal to undergo a psychiatric evaluation at his request was, in his professional opinion, a sign of paranoia and lack of insight, hallmarks of cognitive decline. It was a clever, sinister argument. They were using her own healthy boundaries as proof of her illness. Then, it was their turn. Herr Weber first called Dr. Anga Muller, their own psychiatric expert. She was a woman with a calm, authoritative presence. She presented the results of Renata's extensive cognitive tests, flawless scores in memory, reasoning, and financial literacy. Frau Richter is not only fully competent, Dr. Muller stated firmly, she possesses above average cognitive function for her age. Her decision to cease financing her adult son's lifestyle is not only rational, it is a sign of sound judgment. Herr Weber then called his character witnesses. Eleanor spoke of Renata's clarity and newfound vitality. Cynthia, the hairdresser, testified to her sound mind and warm spirit. Maria, Carmen, and Alfreda all took the stand, a powerful chorus of strong women affirming Renata's sanity and strength. Finally, it was Renata's turn. She walked to the stand, her head high, her back straight. She swore the oath, her voice clear and steady. Herr Weber guided her gently through her story, allowing her to tell it in her own words. She spoke of the years of support, not with bitterness, but with a sad finality. She described the phone call about the wedding, the words, special people, the social media photos. She recounted the invasion of her home, the threat of the lawyer. Frau Richter, Herr Weber said finally, why did you decide to stop the financial support? She looked not at him, but directly at Max. The courtroom was utterly silent. Because I finally understood, she said, her voice carrying to every corner of the room, that what I was receiving in return was not love. It was a transaction. My money was welcome. I, as a person, was not. Do you regret your decision? I only regret that it took me so long to make it. Dr. Fisan's cross-examination was aggressive, trying to trip her up on dates, to paint her new friendships as manipulation, to provoke her into anger. But Renata, fortified by truth and resolve, answered every question with unshakable calm and precision. She was a rock in the face of his storm. In his closing, Dr. Feason pleaded with the judge to see the heartbroken family trying to save their mother from herself. Herr Weber's closing was a masterpiece. Your Honor, the plaintiffs have presented no credible medical evidence of what they have presented is their own frustration that their personal ATM has developed a will of its own. This case is not about mental decline. It is about greed. It is about a son who has confused his mother's wallet with her heart. Judge Miller retired to deliberate. The wait was an eternity. Renata sat between Herr Weber and Eleanor, her hands folded in her lap, her heart a steady, determined drum. When the judge returned, his face was unreadable. He settled into his chair, and the room held its breath. After reviewing all the evidence presented, Judge Miller began, his voice calm and measured. It is abundantly clear to this court that Frau Renata Richter is in full possession of her mental faculties. The professional psychiatric evaluation presented by the defense is compelling and uncontested by any credible evidence from the petitioners. Renata felt Eleanor's hand squeeze hers under the table. Furthermore, the judge continued, his gaze sweeping over Max and Lena. The evidence strongly suggests that this petition is motivated by financial interest, not by genuine concern for Frau Richter's welfare. The petitioner's own actions excluding her from a significant life event while simultaneously relying on her financially speak volumes about their priorities. He paused, letting the weight of his words settle. The request for guardianship is denied. The petition is dismissed with prejudice. The gavel fell, a single, sharp crack that echoed like a gunshot of liberation. It was over. She had won. As they stood, Renata looked across the room. Max was staring at her, and in his eyes she saw not regret, but a pure, undiluted hatred. Lena's mask had completely shattered, her face a rigid mask of fury. They had gambled everything and lost. Dr. Feason was already packing, his expression sour. They turned and left the courtroom without a backward glance. Outside, in the hallway, Herr Weber allowed himself a small, satisfied smile. It is finished. Renata, you are free. Eleanor hugged her tightly. You were magnificent. That night, her house was filled with laughter and the clinking of glasses. Eleanor, Cynthia, Maria Carmen, and Alfreda had all come, turning her home into a fortress of joy and solidarity. They toasted to her victory, to her courage, to justice. Alfreda, her eyes twinkling with 80 years of wisdom, raised her glass. Renata, my dear, she said, today you did not just win a court case, you won back your life. Renata looked around at the faces of these women, her friends, her army. She felt the solid ground of her own home beneath her feet. The ghost of the fearful, people-pleasing woman she had been exorcised in that courtroom. The future, for the first time, was not a fearful expanse of loneliness, but a blank canvas, waiting for her to paint it with the vibrant colors of her own choosing. She had reclaimed not just her money, but her sovereignty. The victory in court was not a crescendo followed by silence, but the opening chord of a new symphony. In the days that followed, a profound quiet settled over Renata's life, but it was a different quiet than before. The oppressive weight of expectation and the knowing anxiety of the next crisis were gone. The phone no longer held power over her. It was a tool, and she was its master. Her first act of true freedom was a practical one. With Herr Weber's guidance, she updated her will. It was a clinical, unemotional process. Max and Lena were removed. not with spite, but with the finality of a surgeon removing necrotic tissue to save the healthy body. Her estate was divided between several charities dedicated to preventing elder abuse and a scholarship fund for Latin life. Art students, the document was signed and notarized. A legal fortress, ensuring her legacy would be one of empowerment, not entitlement. Next, she sold the house. It was not an easy decision. The walls held the echoes of Robert's laughter, of Max's first steps, of a lifetime of memories. But they also held the ghost of her former self, the woman who had waited by the phone, who had polished the furniture for guests who never came, who had cried silent tears in the very kitchen where she now made plans for her future. The house was too big, too full of the past. She needed a space that was purely, unequivocally for the woman she had become. She found a bright, modern apartment in the city center, with large windows that flooded the rooms with light. It had no history, only potential. She bought only new furniture, a sleek, comfortable sofa, a simple dining table for two, a proper artist's easel for the corner with the best light. She did not bring a single piece from the old house. She was shedding a skin. The money from the house sale, combined with the $33,400 she was no longer hemorrhaging, gave her a financial security she hadn't felt since Robert's death. It was not just the amount, it was the absolute knowledge that every penny was hers to steward. True to her word, she donated a substantial sum to the organizations Herr Weber had recommended. The act of writing those checks was not charity. It was alchemy. She was transforming the currency of her pain into a shield for others. She kept the rest, not as a hoard, but as a tool for living. And live, she did. She enrolled in the painting classes she had seen advertised in the art store window. The first time she stood before a blank canvas in the studio, the smell of turpentine and possibility filling her lungs. She felt a joy so pure it was almost painful. Her first painting was abstract, a tumultuous swirl of grays and blacks, with a single stubborn streak of gold breaking through. Her teacher called it powerful. She called it Renata, Part 1. She traveled. She booked a solo trip to Italy, something she and Robert had always talked about but never done. She wandered through the Uffizi Gallery in Florence, sat in a piazza in Siena, sipping espresso, and felt the sun on her face in the Amalfi Coast. She was not lonely. She was a universe unto herself, finally exploring her own vastness. She nurtured her new friendships. Her weekly lunches with Eleanor became a cherished ritual. The garden club evolved into a life club, where they discussed books, politics, and their dreams with the easy familiarity of women who had earned their stripes. Elfrida, in particular, became a treasured confidant. The silence of their absence will sometimes be loud. "My dear," Elfrida told her one afternoon, her gnarled hand patting Renata's, "but you must learn to dance to its rhythm. It is the music of your own freedom." And Renata did. There were moments, of course, a song on the radio that Max had loved as a child, the sight of a young man helping his mother with her groceries. On those days, the grief would rise, not for the son she had, but for the son she had believed in, for the relationship she had so desperately wanted. She learned to let the sadness wash over her, to acknowledge it, and then to let it recede, like a tide that could no longer pull her out to sea. She heard snippets about Max and Lena through the neighborhood grapevine. They had been evicted from their apartment and had to move into a much smaller one across town. Lena had gotten a job as a receptionist. Max had changed companies, taking a position with a longer commute. The news did not bring her satisfaction, nor did it bring her pain. It simply was. They were living the natural consequences of their choices, just as she was living the rewards of hers. One afternoon, almost a year to the day after the trial, she was hanging her latest painting, a vibrant, joyful explosion of color inspired by the Italian coast when her doorbell rang. It was Eleanor, her face alight with excitement. "I have a proposition," she said, holding up a brochure. It was for a river cruise down the Danube, from Germany to Hungary. "Claudia and her husband can't make it, and I don't want to go alone. Come with me." Renata looked at the brochure, at the pictures of castles and vineyards, then at her friend's hopeful face. A year ago, she would have calculated the cost, worried about Max, made an excuse. She smiled. "I'll pack tonight." The trip was magical. They laughed like schoolgirls, explored ancient towns, and shared stories late into the night. On the final evening, standing on the deck as the lights of Budapest glittered on the water, Eleanor turned to her. "You know, Renata," she said softly, "when I met you, you were a vase that had been cracked and glued back together. You were holding your shape, but you were fragile. Now you are forged from steel and filled with light." Renata leaned against the railing, the cool breeze on her face. She thought of the pink dress still hanging in the dark closet of her old house, a relic of a forgotten civilization. She thought of the courtroom, of the gavel's sound, of the first bold stroke of paint on a blank canvas. She thought of the $33,400, not as a loss, but as the price of her own emancipation. She had not just survived. She had been reborn. When she returned home, her apartment welcomed her with its clean lines and beautiful silence. On her easel, a new, blank canvas waited. She made a cup of tea, sat in her favorite chair, and looked out at the city lights beginning to twinkle in the twilight. There was no yearning, no waiting, no desperate hope for a phone call. There was only a profound, unshakable peace. Her name was Renata Richter. She was 72 years old. She was an artist, a traveler, a friend, a survivor. She had learned that the most expensive thing you can own is your freedom, and the most important person you will ever have to love is yourself. And her story was only just beginning. Author's note: this story, while fictional, is woven from threads of a painful reality many face. If you are in a similar situation, please know you are not alone. Your peace is worth protecting. Your life is your own. Thank you for sharing this journey with me. What would you have done in Renata's place? Your thoughts and stories are welcome in the comments below. For more tales of courage and new beginnings, please subscribe the channel and like the video for more videos. Thanks for watching. With heartfelt gratitude, the Emmy.